Okay, mic check. Okay, nice. Betonstorter and Helal are already in the chat on YouTube. Arthur,
Let's
what's
go,
up,
Arthur,
guys?
as
Let's
well.
go. Yo, morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Welcome for joining. I'm just gonna double check my LinkedIn as always, see if it's live there. Um, oh, oh, I heard myself because I had YouTube open. That's not good. I think we're good. Can anyone just post some comments in the chat if you can hear me? And Bob, can you also say something so they can say if they
Yeah,
can hear you?
1, 2, 3.
Hola, hola. Oh, no, no more hola.
Goedemiddag is het nu, hè?
Goedemiddag. All
Jim
the
Jim.
people on LinkedIn. Yep. All the people on LinkedIn. Can you drop something in the chat or the comments so that we know that you can hear us? And then we will kick it off as usual.
Yes.
Nice. Rick, what up, man? Thanks for the confirmation. All right.
Jim Geert.
GM. Both, how's it going, man? Actually, it's funny because we're both back in the Netherlands for a few days.
Muy frío.
Muy frío, yeah, man.
That's what the Spanish would say.
Yep.
It's cold. It's cold. Especially
That's,
I'm in the house of my mother-in-law, and it's I
mm.
think 16 degrees inside, so it's not really that warm and that comfy. So it's sweater time.
I see. Speaking of sweaters, what is that, man? Google Partners?
Oh yes, we're definitely not
Spell out.
sponsored.
So
But
today we're
I've got
gonna
like four. I've got like 4 or 5 of these in my closet, and
nice
they're just
nice
too
bribe.
comfy. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm just walking around like a sponsored dude, 24/7.
So so now, guys, the advice is gonna be to auto apply all recommendations and spend more.
Increase these budgets, yo.
Yeah, up. I hope no Googlers are watching because they will be
Up only.
offended. Yeah, man. All right, cool. Guys, as always, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat on YouTube, and if you're watching on LinkedIn as well, just drop some questions, and we will kick it off as always with a question from the community, from our very own Mr. Betonstorter, aka Adrian. How serious do you guys take the Google Performance Planner? What are your thoughts, Bob?
My thoughts about this. Well, I've seen it work and prognose very well in high volume accounts. That's the first thing that I would say. So it's really doing a good job of forecasting when you've got a lot of data. Where I see it working not so very well is in the low volume accounts with low conversion volumes as well. And there's also like a small detail to be told here as well, I think. So in the accounts that tend to work really well in your performance planner, those are accounts that are really having some kind of stable auction, basically, where all of the competitors are very consistent in the way that their impressions are getting shared, and the way they bid in the auction. That's where you see the actual performance planner being close to correct, with some margin of error, of course, as always. In the case that I've used it, but in the accounts where the auctions are basically just going everywhere, and you're basically gaining tens of percents of auction percentages every week, and then down a lot again, that's where it really performs not that well. So the takeaway here is, I think, have it run on accounts with large volumes, with large conversion volumes, and have it run on accounts with a stable, consistent auction. Basically, that's where you can basically run very good forecasts, in my opinion. Right now, I actually made some forecasts for Q1 in the accounts that I manage. And what I'm about to do is to check back on the performance planner reports that I've run for the accounts in about 2-3 months, and see how accurate they were with the with the real data, basically. So really looking forward to the data.
Nice. If you
How about you?
Yeah, if you have that data, feel free to share. Maybe we can
Yeah,
write a
I'm going
case about it.
I'm going to write a case. So I think
Awesome.
it will be a PPC Mastery case. So
Nice. That's great. Yeah, for me, I think performance planner is nice, but it's always like indication. So even when I use it for my clients, it's always like I try to tell them that this is definitely not a guarantee, but it does give you nice, um, yeah, sort of forecasting what is to be expected and what is
mhm.
possible. And for me, I haven't actually used it a lot recently because my clients are not really working with budgets or forecasts. So it's more like I'm lucky to have ecom clients that just have a specific ROAS target that we need to hit or marketing efficiency ratio. And as long as we hit that, then we can just spend as much as we want to. But it's also nice to like understand what will happen if we change CPA or ROAS targets. So it's quite nice. But I just haven't used it a lot recently because it's just not necessary. But I do think that it's really nice that the performance planner is there now because sometimes it's really hard to do good forecasts because you just never know what the how the market will change and how search volumes might change in the upcoming months, and especially like what happens if you change ROAS targets here and there. So
Mhm.
for those clients that are always looking for those forecasts, like what can we expect, then it's really nice as sort of an indication. But yeah, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think also regarding the actual auctions, you never know what competitors of yours are going to do
Yeah,
next week, next day, next month. So everything they do have like it will have a great crazy amount of impact on the forecast that you're running today. So it can really, I think, prognose the search volumes really well based on the historical data and other aspects as well. But the actual impression share impact, I think that's where things can go really really wrong. So you have to take it with a very big grain of salt, like you already said.
especially if everyone is using Pmax, then I think it
Yeah,
becomes more more unpredictable.
especially.
Cool. Let's move on to a question from Karim, also from Discord.
This is a
What are
nice question
some
for you, I think. So I'm
Oh,
going to ask you this one.
all right, go for it.
What are some best practices for implementing DSAs into running ecom campaigns? A
Yeah,
question from Karim from a Discord
yeah.
community.
I really like DSA campaigns, and I've been using them for years. One thing that you can do is on your best performing campaigns, definitely use an ad group that targets the same landing pages that you're targeting in that campaign, because then you will just do more prospecting on different search terms that you may not cover with your standard keyword set. Definitely keep an eye on the search terms that you are seeing matched in your DSA ad groups or campaigns. We'll move to that in a second. Because there could be potentially a lot of waste because it depends on how your landing page is structured and what Google kind of reads as the content that is on the landing page that you're targeting. But that is one because the power of targeting the landing pages that you're already targeting is that Google will basically scrape that to see which search terms might also be relevant that you may not be targeting yet. Um, Next to that, there's you can target as many landing pages as you want with DSA. So outside of the landing pages that you're already targeting in your regular responsive search ads, I would usually suggest to just try and target as many landing pages as possible. Because then, for one, you can see if there are more search terms that you can get matched on, but you can also see the performance of that specific landing page, which could also maybe uh, be fuel for a next landing page test that you could do inside of your um, yeah keyword ad groups. Um, but I also actually still use DSA separate DSA campaigns as sort of a catch-all, and I don't know if it's still sort of best practice right now because I think Google's pushing it more like from the Hagakure perspective, where you have a consolidated campaign structure with your ad groups structured by keyword themes, and then also the DSA ad group with the same landing pages that you're already targeting. But I just see that the results are still really good with the DSA catch-all campaign, where you just target basically all the landing pages, and then you exclude landing pages that one don't perform well, but also landing pages that are just not relevant to target with ads. So your contact pages, sometimes blog pages, but I would also be careful. I know you have some really good cases with that as well.
Mhm.
But sometimes blog pages can convert really well because they might be structured as sort of a sales funnel. Um, so I would not exclude blog pages by default, but just run them and see how it performs. It might be different with yeah, with specific verticals, but in general with ecom, those landing pages could definitely perform well.
Do you also
Um,
tend to use page feeds next to all of the Google index pages?
yeah, it, for the clients that I'm
Yeah,
working with right now,
yeah,
not really.
and I know you have some ecom clients that have a really small assortment of products, right?
Mhm.
They basically just sell one hero product that is driving like 90% plus of all the revenues. So that
Mhm.
might be a little bit different and unneeded. But for example, what if you would be running an ecom account for a client that has like 500 products? Would you be interested in running DSAs next to the Google index pages as a
Yeah,
DSA targeting?
absolutely. I think the downside of Google index pages is that there's limited control there because it also depends on how Google has indexed those pages,
Mm,
and it might actually be that some of the pages that you want to target may not be indexed or not indexed well, and then yeah, you're kind of missing out. So yeah, page feeds are definitely interesting to use then in those cases. What about you? You still do you use that a lot?
yeah, I think in contrast of your ecom clients, my ecom clients actually have a lot of products. So
Yeah.
what I tend to do for my ecom clients is that I try to integrate DSA, by the way, within my keyword-based search campaigns as an ad group. So what I normally tend to do is target the Google indexed URLs on ad group level within, of course, the contextual campaign, and then I also create an additional ad group that is page feed targeted. So from Channable, I just create a very simple XML feed that is basically linked to certain rules. For example, of course, the products that are included into the page feed still need to be in stock. They still
Mhm.
need to well, of course, it depends on the vertical that you're running into. And once you put it through Channable, you'll basically have a list of all of the product URLs and some labels, for example, the brands of the certain products or the categories they're in. And then I tend to refer on those types of labels within the page feed from the page feed DSA specific ad group. And that tends to perform really well when you combine it next to your Google indexed DSA targeting, basically. So I think it's only a wise thing to do this if you have like multiple and a lot of products into your e-com store. If you have like 10 products, it doesn't really matter. But I think it's a wise thing to experiment with.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. And I think Channable recently launched integration to actually build those DSA campaigns from Channable. So now you can, I think you can also use that page feed directly inside of Channable to automatically, dynamically create those campaigns and ad groups, which is super nice because it saves a lot of time as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the next question. Let's see if we have some. If you guys that are watching have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Deonta says, "Quick hi for me. Hi, how you doing?"
We have a
Um,
very long one from Nadim, but I think this one is too long to discuss into this episode. I think
cool.
this would be a one to discuss in our Discord community, to be honest.
Yeah, cool. Then in that case, Nadine, feel free to drop your question in Discord. Let's move on to a question from Sophia. Do you have any predictions for 2023? What are your thoughts here?
Ooh, not specific for 2023 because I think it can also happen in 2024 or later.
Mm.
But you see where Google is heading, right? They're heading towards more automation, more black box models, less manual targeting, less manual control. So things that I suspect happening is that Google will leverage more on Performance Max than it has been doing for now already. So I think a lot of accounts will become even more Performance Max heavy. Right now, Google has made some exclusions, right, where it still gives the pre towards exact match types in your search campaigns, stuff like that. So those things might go away in the future, where Google might think, well, hey, if we're going to get a better ad rank in PMax, even though you have like a exact match within search that maps on the actual keyword, or a different match type that match the exact search term, then it will still match in PMax, maybe. So I think that might be a thing that will roll out in the future. But I think it will also when you're going to take a look at other things that might happen in the near future. I think Google will double down on broad match more next to PMax. I think that's also a logical way, a logical next step. So right now you're seeing that broad match, where implemented, is already doing quite well if you're using the right bidding strategies and the right targets. You see that the share of broad is getting bigger in certain accounts, and that phrase and exact is, well, basically just getting pushed back more and more, and broad is taking that share that wasn't allocated to broad previously. I think that trend will continue. And maybe exact match will become obsolete in the near future as well, because right now, if you see the actual close variants that are getting mapped on exact match already, yeah, if you checked it back 1 year already, it started to go broader already.
Yep.
But right now, if you just pull out a search term report and filter it on exact match only, you will see it's getting broader. It's basically
Yeah.
going towards phrase match at this
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
So I see it going away completely.
Mm.
It's already becoming obsolete in certain
Mm.
cases. And yeah, those are
It's
some of the
already,
things.
yeah, it's already not what it used to be, for sure.
Yeah.
The exact match.
Oh yeah. Already 1 year, maybe more than 1 year already. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane. Do you have any additions to what you might
Yeah,
expect changing in the near future?
I think a lot more advertisers will be ready to advertise on YouTube. And of course, like YouTube video has been pushed hard for the last 2 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
with video action campaigns becoming really strong. It's definitely like looking at the clients that I'm working with, bottom of funnel is always covered. You have your search and shopping. That's always the base layer, I would say. But a lot
Mm-hmm.
of more advanced brands, but now also the intermediate brands, they're looking at YouTube as a really strong mid funnel prospecting layer that they can
Mm-hmm.
use to generate additional demand. So I have to say, YouTube video action campaigns are really strong for ecom, at least from what I've been running and seeing. And I think now, since we have to transition, since we had to transition to Performance Max, I think a lot of brands are getting used to how to actually create videos, because now if you don't, then and you use a fully filled Performance Max with all the assets, yeah, you have, and if you don't create your own video, and we all know about the quality there. So I think a lot of brands are prioritizing video now and learning about how this inventory could potentially be good for them. I'm not saying that uh, all of the inventory that your ads are showing on from Performance Max on video are good, because a lot of them are trash. And I feel like a lot of them may be like sort of leftover inventory. But on the other hand, video is super strong, and it's not only with Video Action Campaign you can drive conversions with video, but it also, there's a lot of it immeasurable impact, which is the branding that it also
Mm-hmm.
brings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now, since brands are getting used to creating videos for YouTube, I think we will see large shift going there as well. So video becoming way more important.
Yeah, and I think the whole, I think a lot of brands and a lot of advertisers are starting to switch and lean more towards a full funnel
Hmm.
model instead
Hmm.
of only the bottom of the funnel phase. Of course,
Yeah.
it was like the thing to start with, and it still is for
Mm.
when you're just starting out and you have
Yeah.
limited budgets and some sorts. But yeah, next to video, I think a lot of advertisers are starting to scale up their reach, and also want to expand towards YouTube, of course, like you just said, but also display, also discovery, also all the other placements that Google offers through all of their different campaign types. So that, I think that's an interesting thing going on right now. I think the bottom of the funnel is becoming so crowded. It
Hmm.
already has been for the last years, but it's so competitive right now. A lot of markets are shrinking because
Mm.
of, well, lower search volumes in search, and I think a lot of advertisers are looking right now to their whole marketing strategy. Well, how can we reach our ideal customer through what kind of campaign types? And I start to see a lot of advertisers heading to video, heading to display, heading to discovery, dedicated campaign types next to Performance Max, of course. And I think that
Mm.
that shift is also coming from PMax in essence, since people have been, well, including assets lately, especially
Hmm.
in ecom, because they saw, oh well, if I include my assets, it also starts to increase exposure in other channels than only PLA or only or shopping only. Well, and if we are getting exposure in those kind of placements through PMax, why shouldn't we run dedicated campaign types after all? So I think that's an interesting trend going on, and I think it will continue.
Yeah. And what about on the data and measurement side? Because I think there will be some changes there as well. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the privacy concerns are going to be worse.
Mm.
We already started the whole GDPR and AVG thing in Europe. How many years ago? Like
Yeah, four
four
or
years
five
ago.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, where it started to get really, really strict. I think a lot of companies are getting really privacy first right now, and are working on their actual data collection models and stuff like that. So they are GDPR AVG proof. So I see conversion modeling, consent mode, the new features that Google is pushing right now. I think they will become mainstream, and a lot of advertisers are going to implement that in 2023. And yeah, it will also cause like a lot of, yeah, a lot of lack of data, of course, right?
Mm.
Because if a lot of advertisers are going to become really privacy first, and really concerned about the way they are gathering data, and they all want to run it perfectly by the book and perfectly by the instructions of how Google is pushing it, how, of course, our governments are pushing it, or lawmakers, I think it will have reasonable impacts on conversion data, and also the way bid strategies will
Mm.
work. So I think a lot of advertisers are going to see their conversion data sets getting hurt.
Mm.
And I think there are also going to be answers and workarounds how people and, yeah, specialists like us are going to work with that limited data set. You see people heading towards blended ROAS, blended POAS already. They're
Yeah.
starting to switch from really really performance-based, metrics minded, to MER, cost, revenue shares from the whole company.
Yeah.
I think that's something that will continue, and I think it's logical. What do you think?
That's nice, because that's exactly what I wanted to add, is the shift to, and it's an addition to the point that you made earlier about a trend moving more to like a full funnel approach. As a result of a full funnel approach, you also need full funnel metrics, basically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
an MER, marketing efficiency ratio, that's what I'm using with all of my clients right now as sort of the top metric. And then of course we look at ROAS on non-branded search, and we look at impression share on branded search, and we look at all those
You
things.
still have to,
But especially if you have a full funnel approach, not only inside of Google Ads, but you're also running Meta Ads, you're running TikTok, you're running Reddit, Pinterest, everything. Then you need that blended metric, which is super important. So I think also for Google Ads specialists and performance marketers, you need to shift your focus from only your campaign performance to how does that play into the overall performance. And of course, like, you should always have already been doing that, but I think now, especially if you're working with a client that doesn't have that yet, then I think that's up to us as the specialists to sort of educate them on how important that actually is. Because I have some examples from clients that I have worked with in the past that didn't really use any overarching performance metrics, and they were looking at the ROAS from Google Ads, they were looking at the ROAS from Facebook, and then they thought that the performance was really good. It doesn't add up. Then let's say, for example, you have 1 million revenue in Shopify, and then you add in all the conversion values from the channels, and then it's like 2.7. And then your ROAS just goes down from 300% to 120%.
All the platforms tend to over attribute. They're like, well, I was the one that that's
so
very nice.
So I think that's going to be super important as well.
I think this is a really nice discussion to maybe we can do like a podcast episode of this. I think that would be epic.
I think our friend Frederick will also be interested in talking about this. I think this is one of his favorite topics, especially because then there's another point. I think more advertisers are waking up to actual profit instead of only revenue. So that could definitely be super interesting.
We've got two questions in LinkedIn, maybe worth answering.
Yes. I will ask Peter. It's a lead gen. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Peter, what kind of ads are the best for lead generation? And maybe, because the other questions from Nadine, are DSAs good to generate leads? So it's maybe in the same category. But let's start with Peter's question. What are the best ads for lead gen?
I think this is still Google Ads related, right? So Peter, I would say start with search. Start in the bottom of the funnel. There's where the actual intent is, where the actual potential converting keywords are. Right now, that's where you can leverage your ads the most, in my opinion. So just regular search ads. Of course, within search, you have your good old RSAs, your responsive search ads. When you're done there, just go one step further in the funnel to more like demand generation. So try experimenting with display, try experimenting with video, try experimenting with Performance Max. But I would start with that part only if you are done fishing in your search pond, basically. So if all the fish are basically gone into your bottom of the funnel campaigns, then start scaling up, because all of the leads within the whole Google Ads ecosystem, they tend to be of lesser quality and tend to be more expensive in terms of customer acquisition cost if you go further in the funnel. So I hope that helps. Then we have Nadim. Is DSA still working in Yeah, in lead gen. Yeah, it does. I tend to work with DSA ad groups within my lead gen campaigns as well, just to increase my coverage in the search engine result pages and to increase coverage among all of the potential interesting search terms. It really works, and I should suggest you start experimenting with it.
Nice. That's short and sweet. So I think maybe we can finish off with the final question from our friend Gabriele from Italy. How would you structure a framework test in Google Ads to avoid destroying all the results but still trying to innovate? So how I read this is basically he's asking if you want to do tests inside of Google Ads, how would you do that without uh, jeopardizing putting your current results in danger? Do you have any thoughts? Otherwise, I have some as well.
Um, I have some. I think you should be really careful with the test sizes over here. So, what I would suggest, Gabriel, is using campaign experiments and never go full Monty with your experiments. So, always have your control group, your current campaigns testing over like a campaign experiment where you want to test certain campaign settings, for example. Never adjust something and just go full Monty, because if it doesn't work, you will destroy your data and your settings in your original campaigns. And if you're running a dedicated campaign experiment, you won't. You can just disable it, and stuff will be okay. Ad test wise, you can do the same with ad variations, where you can test certain smaller sizes within your RSAs, for example. But you will need a lot of data for them to become statistical significant. So what you could do is try to create one or two variants based on of your RSAs, for example, and have them rotate within your ad groups. And of course, you can write out all of the tests that you're going to run. You can create a hypothesis about all of your ads, the things you want to see change for the better. And if you do it really systematically, I think you'll be good. Yeah, and a lot depends on the account. A lot of impact depends on the way you set up the test. So if you're
Mhm.
going to create new ads and rewrite them completely, the impact will be different than when you just create small iterations of your current ads. So yeah, there's a lot to be said over there. What would you
Yeah.
say, Mas?
Yeah, I would say exactly the same. And one thing is where it depends is the type of campaign. So let's say
Hmm.
search, shopping, but also for if you want to test specific like new keywords in the search campaign, you could do it with the experiments. But also if you add new keywords to an existing campaign, then sometimes it will just not get any traction. It will just don't give impressions because it will prioritize the existing ones that you already have. And so one thing that I'm uh, often doing is just create a new campaign with only that keyword with a small budget, because you just want to see like how would this keyword perform with a small budget and test small. Of course, it's not statistically significant, but it can give you some indication of how the performance on that keyword might be. And then if you see that it's getting some data and it's actually good, you can start adding it to your existing campaign. But that is if you're not using the experiments, which in most cases experiments are just the best way because it's just a clean A/B test and you can actually see when it's statistically significant, yes or not. But that's maybe one thing that you can add is just a new campaign with a small budget.
You got some follow-up questions. Maybe
Uh,
you can pull it up.
yeah,
That would be a question for you. So Gabriel says, I was thinking how to test different PMAX in e-commerce environment. For example, PMAX based on custom labels. For example, margin categories.
yeah,
So let's say you want to experiment with different performance max campaign structures. How would you set those up?
yeah. This is definitely high risk testing because your campaign structure is usually the foundation for your performance, for your success. So if you change that campaign structure, then it could be stable, but it could also go down fast, but it could also improve your performance. So that is one test, especially with PMAX. You can't really do experiments. So and
Yeah.
the one thing to note is with campaign structure testing, it's always a before and after test. So take into consideration what is the seasonal impact that might drive the performance up. That sort of gives um, a wrong image of how the performance actually changed. It's always hard to do these things, but yeah,
Yeah,
these
it's like
are
a flip. It's like a flip the switch test. You know,
yeah,
you cannot really set up a experiment that is really controlled like you can in search, for example. So
yeah,
if you want to experiment with certain kinds of performance max structures or shopping in general, you just have to flip the switch, think things through really well.
yeah,
Indeed, make sure you're not in a seasonal peak or there's not one coming into the upcoming weeks. So make sure you're in a consistent environment. And then you have to find a way to make a before after test. So it's a really, within Google Ads, is one of the most risky tests you can run, basically.
campaign structure. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Cool. Um, I think he's some extra notes from Gabriele. It's just basically geolocation targeting. With e-commerce, geolocation testing, I would be careful with that personally, is my opinion, because you're just splitting up the volumes, the conversion volumes. Um, so if location doesn't really matter to your store, let's say if you're a local business, then of course geolocation targeting is super important. But if it doesn't really matter, then I would be careful with those geolocation tests unless you have a really good reason to do it, because you see in a specific area you have way better performance than in another. Then you could do that. But in most cases, yeah, those geolocation targeting tests are maybe not even necessary in ecom. But just some quick thoughts without context of your situation. Um, cool. I think that's it. We ran out of questions, ran out of time. Any final notes from you, Bob?
Wishing everyone great holidays.
Yeah,
I
man.
think we will be skipping next week because it will be, what is it?
No, it's a
Yeah,
no, it's a
one
30.
it's 30. Oh yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
can do
We
it.
we can we can still do it. We can still do
We
it.
can hang out.
Um, yeah, I think it will work.
Yeah.
So enjoy your holidays, you too, Miles, because I think I won't be speaking to you also in person
Yeah. Thanks.
before Christmas. And I hope to see everyone next week or the week after if you're busy.
Cool. Sounds good. One last final plug, as always. Thanks everyone for joining. We have our Google Ads Masterclass. Oh, I'm actually still seeing the comment from our questions. I'm a noob. I'm such a noob. I always miss. I always miss every time. Like, dude, every
Such a
time.
great plug. Wow.
Yeah. And then the predictions for 2023 question is yeah, I cannot get rid of it. So I'm just gonna skip the plug. Thanks everyone for joining. Happy holidays and see you next week. Peace.
Ciao.